Okay, so this is going to be my recap of Trickster Season 1, Episode 1. So, Jared is 17 years old, and he works at the local fast food joint. So, we know that he's having some issues in school.
You can do better, Jared. I want you to see the guidance counselor.
And, we meet his friend named Crash Pad, his homeboy, who apparently they, used to be real tight back in the day, but they're still friends, but I guess they don't hang out as often as they used to. And so they're talking in the hall, and Dylan walks up.
Hey, man, shoot. Me and Jared got grown-up matters to discuss.
So after somewhat trying to bully Crash Pad, he ends up asking Dylan, asking him if he'd worked that night, and that he was going to stop by and get some of his salty fries. Now we find out that the salty fries is this concoction that these pills that Jared made before going to school. So Jared arrives home, and we meet his mom, Maggie, who likes to party. She likes to have a good time. And, she has some other issues, we find out. And, in the midst of, her little party, Jared ends up going to his room, and she ends up saying, "Can you believe I gave birth to him in the back of a pickup truck?" So, Jared's mom is wild. So Jared makes it to work, and of course Dylan arrives through the drive-thru for his salty fries, and we find out that Dylan shows up for his salty fries. I don't know if I said Jared. And we find out that Jared has a very lucrative business. And so we find out that Jared not only is taking care of his dad, because he stops by his dad's house to give his dad a few dollars. His dad is a recovering addict, and of course, he's concerned about the money, but he, just does what he can to help out.
For rent, a little extra. Groceries
And earlier, before going to work, we saw him pick up a stack of bills from the house. And so we, see him paying some of those bills. So way too much responsibility for a teenager, but this is Jared's life.
I'd like to pay for these, please. Cash.
So the next day, he's on his way to school, and suddenly he's being chased by a dog. And so his mom comes out of nowhere with the pickup truck, and she ends up running over the dog. And so, of course, we find out the dog belongs to Richie. And, of course, he's screaming and carrying on because she just killed his dog. Jared jumps in the truck, and she cusses Richie out, and she sped off. So we find out that Richie is his mom's drug dealer. And she actually owes him money. But she's not too concerned about it. She was like, basically, he should be paying me for selling me trash, right? So she ends up dropping him off at school. Later that day at work, of course, Richie comes through the drive-thru and basically told him that his mother owed him $2,000. And he basically said that we're going to make it $3,000 because she killed my dog. And you got 3 days to pay me my $3,000. Or basically you're going to find your mom in a ditch.
$3,000, 3 days. Or the next dead bitch lying in a ditch is going to be your mommy.
So now he's obviously stressed because he's trying to figure out how he's going to come up with this money. So the next day you see Jared, he's sitting at the bus stop. And this guy just started, trying to strike up a conversation with him, which of course he thought was kind of weird. And so he got up to kind of leave. And when he turned away, all he saw was a raven there. So the guy was gone. So, okay. So, Jared makes his way to his cookhouse where he makes his pills and whatnot. While he was making his stuff, the door opened. He didn't realize, because his back is to the door, that someone had walked in. And we realized that the person that walked in looked oddly like Jared himself. And so by the time he turned around, the person that hit him, and he was knocked out. So later, he's at his friend Crash Pad's house, and they're talking. and he basically told him about being robbed. And he was asking him, so who do you think it is? And he was like, basically, he wasn't going to come out and say, well, it looked like me. He basically said that, he had been seeing weird things for a while now.
I've been seeing some weird shit lately.
So Jared get home, and he's talking to his mom, and he told his mom that later that day some of his friends was going to come over and he was going to have a party. So they're, having their party. His mom comes home, intoxicated, high, or whatever the situation is, and decided it was a good idea for her grown ass to be sitting there doing drugs with teenagers and playing some spin the bottle with them. So it gives you an idea how his mama's mind work, right?
I'll show you how to play a real drinking game. Russian roulette.
So the next evening, Jared is at work, and his mom comes in for a cup of coffee, and he is basically saying that you're not supposed to be here. I don't know. His mom is known around town for being kind of somebody that kind of flies off the handle and kind of not in her right mind. And so he's telling her that you're not supposed to be here. And she basically said that, no, I'm not going to cause this thing. I just want some coffee. She looked like she's wired. Something's going on with her. So while she's sitting at the table, she's talking to herself again.
Shut up. I already know. Stop doing this shit.
And the reason I say again is because when he got home the night he was having the party to tell his mom that he was going to have the party, she was in the room talking to nobody.
I don't like this color. You like this color? Fred, is that you?
So this is the second time we've seen her have a conversation talking to nobody. So while she's sitting there drinking her coffee, a man walks in, the man that was at the bus stop trying to strike up a conversation with Jared, and she flips out, basically attacking the man with a broomstick. And by the time Jared came around the corner, she turned, just as soon as she turned back to see Jared and turned back to look at the man, it wasn't who she thought it was. Or was it? Now, the reason she feels that way is because how this episode opens was, you see her going through the woods. She's running after some man. This was the night that Jared was born. And this man is walking off with Jared in his arms. And she basically telling him to give her back her baby.
Give me my baby!
And he kind of turned and stared at her, and his eyes did some weird thing, right? And she kind of stopped in her tracks for a minute. But she caught up with him. And I don't really understand this scene where she let out, there's like this guttural scream. And it was like, I don't know if it weakened the man or what happened there. But she ends up getting Jared. And of course, this is now seeing where things pick up 17 years later. Now Jared is 17 years old. And so, of course, she's the only person that knows this story, right? Because we're assuming that this guy is actually Jared's biological father. And the man he thinks is his daddy, not his daddy. But that's why she flipped out when she saw the man. But again, of course, we know that. She knows that, but the other people don't. So it caused this huge scene, and Jared ended up getting fired. And so later that night, his mom comes in with, some food for him. And he was basically saying, I hope is this your way of apologizing? And she was like, I could dump it on you.
Well, is this your way of saying sorry?
I could just dump it on you.
And then he ends up asking her, like, do you ever regret having me? And of course she was like, why would you ever think that? And he was like, well, you could have done some more, done so much more with your life. And she basically said that my life didn't start until I had you.
Haven't you ever wondered what your life would have been like without me?
My life didn't exist before you, Jelly Bean.
And so they talked it over, and you see, everything was everything. So the next day, Dylan stops at Crash Pad's house to see if he wanted to go to Dylan's party. Of course he said no, but he ended up going anyway. And so Jared is 3 sheets to the wind, and he starts what we assume to be hallucinating. So he's sitting on the couch, and he look over, and he see himself sitting on the couch. So he goes into the bathroom to wash his face. And when he comes out the bathroom, he's still seeing himself like standing across from him. This time with this evil grin on his face. So of course he runs out and he gets sick. Everybody thinks that, he's just high, he just needs to sleep it off. So The next day, he's talking to Crash Pad because he's still trying to figure out how he's going to come up with this money. So he decides he's going to play bingo. Of course, that didn't work. And somehow Crash Pad came through for him and came up with the money because, of course, it's the third day and he need to come up with his money because he don't want his mother being killed. So him and Crash Pad go make their way over to Richie's to pay him, and they find out that Richie's house has been burned to the ground.
Your mom wouldn't kill Richie, would she?
So he goes home and he sees his home is disheveled. So he's terrified, thinking that, okay, Richie's been here and he'd have been here and he'd killed my mother. No, he didn't kill the mom. They came out the back room. They had them a little tete-a-tete in the back room, and basically she had helped him commit insurance fraud. So he burned his house down so he can get the insurance money, which is more than what she owes him.
You thought Richie came here to kill me? We got a little carried away in the kitchen.
And so, and the fact that he's moving in because she didn't burn down his house, so he don't have nowhere to stay. So now later that day, Jared is finally burying the dog that was still in the ditch on the side of the road. And this crow lands beside him and starts talking to him.
You, the sentimental one.
And of course he flips out and runs off. And that is pretty much how this episode ends.